I sincerely greet all the participants of the round table. The humanitarian response, everyone has the right to protection, and we're thankful to everyone who has found the possibility to join this important talk today, both online and offline in Kyiv. I am Victoria Nazarenko. I am Secretary General of the National Assembly of People with Disabilities of Ukraine. I have the honor to moderate this event today. The National Assembly of People with Disabilities has been uniting organizations of people with disabilities for many years, and we are working to make sure that the voice of people with disabilities is heard when shaping the state policy, and the rights which are enshrined in the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities are implemented into practice. Today's meeting is dedicated to the very important issue, that is humanitarian response in the wartime and ensuring the rights of people with disabilities during humanitarian crisis. Over the last 2 months, our team, together with the regional organizations, which are here next to me, we have been implementing advocacy campaigns in 10 regions of Ukraine, including the frontline territories. We were working directly with communities. We were collecting the experience of people with disabilities, analyze the barriers they encountered during evacuation or when obtaining humanitarian support and accessing services. And today we are going to tell you about this. Today we have representatives of the authorities. I'm very thankful to the ministries and departments and agencies who have joined us. Please believe us that your participation today in this event is very important. I also welcome our colleagues from classes, international organizations, and public organizations of people with disabilities, representatives of territorial communities, and also representatives of people with disabilities and veterans with disabilities. This broad dialogue is extremely important because humanitarian response must be inclusive and take into consideration the needs of all the people. Before we start, I would like to express our deep and sincere gratitude to the armed forces of Ukraine who are protecting every day our state and allow us to have such meetings and to discuss the rights of the people. Today, our round table discussion is within the project in strengthening the rights of people with disabilities during the wartime and according to the UN Convention. And the goal of our meeting today is to discuss these key challenges and barriers encountered people with disabilities and to present recommendations from organizations of persons with disabilities and strengthen the participations of OPDs in shaping the state policy. We very much value the support of our international partners, the International Alliance, Disability Alliance, and International and European Disability Forum, who have been supporting us on a continual basis, especially during the wartime. And before I offer the microphone for greeting works, let me please make a few organizational messages. Our event is supported with simultaneous interpretation to ensure accessibility for all participants into sign language and also Ukrainian and English. We plan to work for about 2 hours, and we would kindly ask the speakers to keep to their time limits. Also, according to our agenda, we will have time for open discussion, and I would ask for the participants who have joined us online, you will be accompanied by our co-moderators, Katerina and Pavlo. So please also leave your comments and questions in the chat, raise your hands, and you will also be offered possibility to speak during the discussion. Another important thing to mention, we all understand that Ukraine is now living in the wartime. That is why the security and safety issues are priority ones. And in case of air alarms in your regions, please online during their registration, who are offline. They have been informed during the registration where the shelters are. Thank you for understanding, and thank you for opening this. And I would like to invite the head of the National Assembly People with Disabilities, Valery Sushkevich, who is together with the Paralympic team, is now in Milan, as you know. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So my participation today in this round table is not quite usual. There are some critical issues, and my function for many years, in addition to being the head of the National Assembly of People with Disabilities, my functional responsibilities include the presidency of the National Paralympic Committee of Ukraine. So I could not miss this event. Moreover, that I have been working for many years, for more than 16 years in Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. I have co-authored and authored many legislative initiatives, and all the legislative initiatives that I prepared were also on behalf of the organizations of people with disabilities. I summarized their proposals. So that's why today's event of humanitarian about humanitarian response and it does focus on the point that everyone has the right to protection. And the National Assembly, since the first days of the full-scale war, has been cooperating with many international organizations, which has allowed us for prompt response and to start work without agitation and without getting lost. And I join the words from Victoria in our gratitude towards the International Disability Alliance and the European Disability Forum, because these organizations specifically have allowed us to start fast and prompt responding and join the and offer a kind of mainstream responding to the needs of persons with disabilities. And moreover, that we did manage to work, although it was hard to work under the principle nothing for us without us, which has been defined by European community internationally about the efficient implementation of the policy for persons with disabilities. Also, I want to add, and you have heard it partially, and Victoria has mentioned that you will hear more, that National Assembly of Assemblies of Ukraine, National Assembly of People with Disability of Ukraine has a powerful a network and of organizations and has provided a humanitarian response. And very important component of our work has always been informing and disseminating information, especially during the wartime. But you know, one of the more important components of our roundtable today, as may I remind you, that is about the humanitarian response. Everybody has the right to protection, and me personally and our team has we have seen that it is necessary to resolve the issues of humanitarian response at a systemic level. And in order to do that, legislative changes are necessary, legislative developments are necessary. And one of the key results of our joint work together with the international organizations, we can say also including some non-governmental organizations and ministries and authorities. And during this roundtable discussion, we're going to propose our consolidated proposals to the legislation regulatory framework of Ukraine. And I hope that you will hear them and you will accept them as the developments prepared by the civil society. Within the project that Victoria has mentioned, we have developed proposals to amend the Civil Code of Ukraine, which aim to systemically integrate the disability issues into the state policy for civil protection. Because today, civil protection has this need to systemically integrate the disability-related issues, because it is people with disabilities who are critically suffering during the wartime. It's not only about some separate social guarantees. We are not we are not talking about local aspects. We want to change the approach and take into consideration the voice of people with disabilities and their participation decision making should become integral part of the social protection of the state. And this is the point, the essence of effective work within the state policy for people with disabilities. These proposals are also directly related to the principles we have always relied our work on, and in particular the UN Convention, specifically Article 11 of this convention, which obliges us, I stress it, obliges us that the state has to ensure the safety of people with disabilities during armed conflicts and humanitarian crises and emergencies. And in this case, we have the military crisis, which is hard for me to call a crisis because this is a war which has been unleashed by aggressor country killing us. Also, that is why the National Assembly People with Disability has prepared legislative proposals to the National Plan of Action aiming at for the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Designed up to 2030. So specifically for this plan, we have prepared systemic suggestions regarding the evacuation and starting from evacuation and also up to and related to shelters and humanitarian response. We have tried to encompass everything in order to improve and specifically to make it really to make the policy of civil protection within the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, specifically Article 11. One more important area of our work is to strengthen the role, in the context of what I have said, the role and capacity of public organization of people with disabilities, because it is organization of people with disability who are the key partners of the state, and the state, it's important for the state to realize this, to realize it to the maximum. What has been said today and what has been announced at the European level, that nothing for us without us, and this focus on partnership has and will ensure an efficient state policy. The National Assembly has prepared proposals in this context regarding amendments to the state budget, a budget code of Ukraine and other legislative acts of Ukraine, which include in particular creation of legal basis for institutional associations of people with disabilities using the support from budget funds. In order to implement what we plan, we need institutional support from the state, which is actually enshrined in the UN Convention. It's necessary to implement that. Also, what we have processed, prepared within the budget code, that is to have legislative ensuring the participation of OPDs in development of legislative and regulatory acts for people with disabilities related to their protection during the wartime in particular. Dear friends, I have already mentioned that as a member of parliament, I had always kept to this principle. When I was drafting a law, I always try to make sure that it is connected, linked to the organizations, people with disabilities, who know the needs of people with disability from the grassroots. And I would like also to say that there is a stereotype that we just need some funding and funding for the needs of people with disabilities. What we want now to amend in the budget code of Ukraine, this will allow Ukraine to implement its international obligations and to build a modern model of partnership between the state and organization of people with disabilities to overcome the stereotype that people with disabilities, it's not about for obtaining support in cash in money for people with disabilities, but it's our work of our aspects as advocates, as experts, as participants in the humanitarian response. We are now an important participant, element of the democratic processes in Ukraine, democratic development. And when we talk about institutional support, including amendments in the budget code, we mean specifically this. And today's event, today's round of discussion, when we want to propose our propose amendments for your consideration. This is in order to make sure that the people or voice of people with disabilities can be heard at all levels of state and other kinds of administration, both locally and state and in, because today we rely on international support. And let us say frankly that international organizations understand us more because and they keep to the principles of the convention better. And unfortunately, our parliament, our government, not always hears us and understand the importance of the implementation of the UN Convention principles. I want to thank again the international organizations, but also the representatives of our state agencies who are present at our event today. A big gratitude to our regional partners who have been cooperating with us, because we do work powerfully in the regions, in communities, and the local communities, and both local communities and central authorities are our partners with whom we are able to cooperate. I also want to express my convinced my belief that the result of our work today would allow us to increase the inclusiveness and efficiency of humanitarian response in Ukraine, and to make it more inclusive for everyone who needs humanitarian response. I'm thankful to your attention. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be all the time present at our event because there are specific problems related to critical issues related to fighting the aggressor country here as well.
Михайлович,
Thank
від
you very
нашого
much. It's
загалу
important for
хочу
Ukraine.
сказати, що нас
Dear
має
Valery Mikhailovich,
включено біля 200 людей на цій
from
конференції
our
онлайн і
community here,
офлайн.
I would like to
Щирі
say that we
вітання
have
нашій
almost
паралімпійській збірні і вам
200
особисто.
people
Тримайтесь, ми
in this
вболіваємо,
event,
тримаємо
both
кулачки,
offline and
і
online, and
ми
I see our
свідомі,
gratitudes and
наскільки зараз
wishes
вам
to
там
you and Paralympic
непросто.
Ukrainian team. We do understand how uneasy it is for us. We will hear each other. I
Дякую,
do
Валерій
hope
Михайлович.
and
Дякую.
I do ask you
Ну,
to
ми
hear each other.
продовжуємо
Thank you,
вітальні
Valery
виступи, і зараз передаємо
Tushkevich.
слово
Now we'll
Гордону Ретрею,
continue our
старшому раднику з питань
greetings, and
клімату
now
та
we continue our
гуманітарної
greetings, and
діяльності
now the
Міжнародного альянсу людей з інвалідністю.
words
Іден.
for greetings goes to
Гордоне,
Mr. Gordon Redtrain, Senior Advisor on Climate and Humanitarian Affairs, International Disability Alliance. So we're pleased to see you.
дякуємо.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and dear colleagues from the National Assembly. It is a great pleasure and honor to be here. Let me first check that you can hear me okay. Please, can you let me know? Okay, I see you can. So on behalf of the International Disability Alliance, it is an honor to join this roundtable. We're gathered here to address a fundamental truth that is far too often forgotten. The right to protection is universal. This right does not diminish because of disability, and it cannot be suspended by conflict or disaster. In humanitarian settings, persons with disabilities are among those at the greatest risk, yet they remain the most overlooked in response efforts. Today, we must shift this narrative. We must move away from viewing persons with disabilities as mere vulnerable recipients of charity and recognize us as rights holders who must be positioned at the very center of humanitarian strategy. Inclusion is not an optional special project. It is not an option in humanitarian response. It is a legal and moral obligation. When we fail to ensure that shelters, for example, are accessible, when we fail to ensure that warning systems reach everyone or that medical aid is inclusive, we are not just witnessing a gap in services, we are witnessing a violation of human rights. The full inclusion of persons with disabilities in protection efforts is the only way to ensure that we are working in line with the humanitarian principles. But this requires a shift in how we think. We must move from segregated services to accessible mainstream systems. We must move from just making assumptions about needs to inclusive action based on data and evidence. As Valery Suskevich said, the heart of our movement is the principle nothing about us without us. But this is not just a slogan, it is a requirement for effectiveness. Organizations of persons with disabilities, often called OPDs, are the first responders in their communities. They possess the local knowledge, the trust, and the lived experience necessary to identify those who have been left behind. Yet all too often, OPDs are invited to the table only after the decisions have been made, therefore much too late. We must formalise the role of organisations of persons with disabilities in humanitarian coordination and in the decision-making processes. This is fully in line with the concept of humanitarian localisation and in the global humanitarian reset. When persons with disabilities lead the design of a response, the impact is better for everyone. And to strengthen this, we need a radical increase in the cooperation between international partners and national organizations of persons with disabilities. International aid must not bypass local expertise. It must be the fuel for local expertise. And then coming to the situation in Ukraine, despite the immense bravery of local activists, significant systemic barriers remain. I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first one is a lack of recognition of disability inclusion and governance. So while the humanitarian need is huge, the systematic involvement of OPDs, organizations of persons with disabilities, in decision-making is still not sufficiently recognized by authorities. Inclusion cannot be an afterthought. It must be embedded in emergency architecture. Secondly, the policy gap. Ukraine still lacks an effective national action plan for the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Without this roadmap, the implementation of disability rights remains fragmented and reactive rather than systematic. And thirdly, these rights are deteriorating in the conflict. They are becoming worse. In the context of the ongoing war, the situation for many is reaching a breaking point. I think we saw this in the videos that were being shown as we joined the meeting. Access to basic services, evacuation and protection is deteriorating. We're seeing a regression in the rights that require significantly greater attention and immediate inclusive intervention. So finally, I would close by saying that we cannot wait for the post-conflict phase to talk about rights. Protection belongs to everyone and it belongs to them now. So please let's begin this roundtable with a renewed commitment to fund OPDs directly, to hold humanitarian actors accountable to inclusion standards, and to support Ukraine in building a protection system that truly leaves no one behind. Thank you very much, and I look forward to participating.
Гордоне, хочу сказати, що
Dear Gordon, I would like to say that Gordon Rattray is our long-standing friend. I'm thankful to European Disability Forum, thankful to International Disability Alliance, and very important and necessary messages have been mentioned by you. I would like to invite the Executive Director of the European Disability Forum, Ms. Catherine Norton. Thank you, Catherine, for being with us. It's very important as well.
Dear Victoria, dear colleagues, I am really honored to be invited to speak at your event today. I will just briefly introduce the European Disability Forum. We're an umbrella organization, just like the National Assembly is in Ukraine. The European Disability Forum has members all across Europe, and we fight together for the rights of persons with disabilities. I won't go in detail on parts of the convention because Gordon and the president of NADP have already gone in quite some detail on that, and also on the fact that the convention does include specifically emergency situations and international cooperation. So at the European Disability Forum, we're proud to count NADP as one of our members. And we know that due to the horrific war, which has been raging in your country now for these long years, that you have developed incredible expertise in humanitarian assistance, in security, in evacuations, and all these things. So you have proven the important role that organizations of persons with disabilities can play in a humanitarian situation. You have proven that you can meet the needs of your members, you can cooperate with UN agencies, with international organizations. But the international community still has not put the framework there together. It's on paper, and they talk about localization, but the reality is there are still not mechanisms for international donors to directly fund DPOs. Through the different funds that exist, they have restrictions. And so this is something that I hope your experience in Ukraine, the capacities that you've shown, you know where people with disabilities are, you know what the needs are, you have the network to address those, to explain to the international community what's needed. So I hope that the work you're doing now, the advocacy you're doing now, will help us reshape the UN system. So we are here, we stand with Ukraine, we continue to. We look forward to welcoming Ukraine into the European Union as a full member of the EU. And we also hope that soon Ukraine will see peace, a fair and just peace. I'm very grateful that we've been able to cooperate over these years. I'm grateful also to CBM International and to the German Foreign Office that have continued also to support the very good work that you're doing. And for the long haul, I hope that continues. And you can count on us in all the next steps now that are important for Ukraine at the EU level. The European Disability Strategy, the next EU budget, the European accession process, we will continue to fight for full visibility of Ukraine in that process, for an accessible and inclusive reconstruction in Ukraine at the international level. And we continue to be your friends and partners throughout all of this. Thank you, Victoria.
Кетрін, дуже дякую. Хочу сказати, що
Thank you, Catherine, very
дійсно
much.
Європейський
I would
форум
like to
CBM нас
say that for
підтримали з
sure
самого
that European
початку
Forum and CBM have
війни,
been
і ми
supporting us
надали
since the start of
дуже
the war,
багато
and we've
гуманітарної
been
допомоги людям з інвалідністю
providing
завдяки її
a
підтримці.
lot of
І
humanitarian
головне, що ми
support to
впливали на
people with
політику.
disabilities
Да?
thanks
Це
to that
також дуже
support.
важливо. І
And
Кетрін,
very
є
important is
представники
that we've
багато
been
благодійних
influencing
фондів, громадських
the
організацій,
policy.
власне.
And Catherine
І
knows
саме
that we
вони
have
на
here
сьогоднішній день
representatives of
працюють у сфері
many
гуманітарного
public
реагування. І
organizations, people
саме
with
індикатори,
disabilities
оці
who have been
індикатори
working in the
інклюзії,
sphere
врахування
of
потреб людей з інвалідністю,
humanitarian
це
response, and they
відбувається,
are
але, на жаль,
kind
не
of
так, тому що їх там
indicators of
дуже хотілося,
how this
але ви на
response and
правильному
policy
шляху. Дуже
have been
дякую.
shaping and
Колеги, мені дуже
changing.
приємно,
We are
що
on the
сьогодні
right
з нами
path, not
представник
as fast as
Міністерства
we
соціальної
wanted to
політики,
be.
сім'ї
Dear
та
colleagues,
єдності
it's very
України,
pleasant for
Ігор
me
Вовка,
that we
заступник
have
начальника
representative from
управління.
the
Ігорі, вам слово.
Ministry of
Доброго дня,
Social
шановні
Policy of
учасники заходу.
Ukraine. Dear participants,
По-перше,
dear
хочу
members
від
of the event,
міністерства
first of all,
подякувати
I would like to
організаторам за
express my
ініціативу
gratitude
проведення
to the
круглого
organizers
столу.
for the initiatives
Важливо
to
в
hold in
контексті
such an important event.
гуманітарних викликів, в яких сьогодні знаходиться Україна. Дякую за
Dear
запрошення,
colleagues, first of all, thank you
за
for the invitation
можливість
to
взяти
participate in
участь у
this
обговоренні
important
питань сьогоднішньої
event
теми.
to discuss
Тому
these
гуманітарних
important
викликів
issues.
особливої актуальності набуває питання
Regarding
забезпечення рівного
humanitarian
доступу
challenges,
до допомоги, послуг, захисту
an issue
осіб
is
з інвалідністю.
raised to ensure
Тому також
access
особливо
for
важливо,
persons
щоб
with
гуманітарне
disabilities to
реагування
humanitarian
ґрунтувалося на
services
підході,
and
заснованому на
humanitarian
правах
aid. It is
людини та
particularly
врахувало потреби
important
всіх
to
людей,
ensure
зокрема
that
людей з інвалідністю.
humanitarian
Це є
response
важливим
is
кроком у
based on
впровадженні
human rights
конвенції,
and
положень Конвенції ООН
guarantees the access
з
for
прав
people with
осіб з
disabilities.
інвалідністю.
This is
В цьому контексті
stipulated by
хочу
the UN
поінформувати, що
Convention on the Rights of People with
на сьогоднішній
Disabilities.
день
In
міністерством
this
розроблено
context,
проект
I
національного
want to
плану дій
highlight
з
that the
реалізації
ministry
конвенції,
has developed
який
the National
розраховано
Action
до
Plan to
2030
implement the
року. Цей
UNCRPD
план
till
планується офіційно направити на центральні органи
2035.
виконавчої влади та
This
інші
plan
заінтересовані сторони,
will be forwarded
сторони
to the central
для
government agencies
ознайомлення,
and other
опрацювання,
stakeholders
надання
for
відповідних
review
пропозицій та зауважень.
and comments
Наступний
and
етап буде розробка
suggestions.
відповідного проекту
At the next
розпорядження та
stage, we
перспективі
will be
затвердження цього плану.
drafting as a resolution and approving
Я вважаю,
this
що цей
action
план
plan. I believe that this action plan represents an important step to actualize the activities to implement the convention.
В процесі, вже коли затвердять цей план, всі сторони, які будуть задіяні до його виконання, проявили
And it is also highly important that all parties that are involved in the approving of this plan remain accountable and engaged. Such platforms as the roundtable we are having today are essential because they help to consolidate the efforts of public agencies, civil society organizations, and members of the expert community to develop effective solutions that will be beneficial both for the state and for the society. I would like to wish fruitful and constructive discussion to all participants. Thank you. I believe that we are coming together today and talking at the right time and in the view of Article 11 of the UNCRPD, we hope that we will be involved at the right stage, and we have been looking forward to this action plan because the UNCRPD resolution was adopted in 2024. And we are grateful and hope that our suggestions will be taken into account. Colleagues, now I would like to proceed to our second session, and our regional DPOs will be talking about the advocacy campaigns that we have conducted in 10 regions of Ukraine. Now I would like to give the floor to Lesa Perepechenko, the coordinator of our advocacy campaign in the region and president of DPO Modern View. Good morning, dear colleagues. My name is Lesa Perepechenko, and I have been working together with our representatives in the regions, and I'm honored to represent the outputs of our work today. I have been living without eyesight for over 40 years, and like nobody else, I'm very well aware of all barriers and challenges faced by people with disabilities. Our purpose was to strengthen advocacy in the area of humanitarian response and post-war recovery of Ukraine, taking into account regional challenges and barriers encountered by people with disabilities on a daily basis when they try to access humanitarian aid services, information, even when they try to access decision-making processes and try to participate in these decision-making processes at the level of local communities and districts. We managed to bring together 10 regions of Ukraine in one large advocacy campaign. Humanitarian response. Everyone has the right to protection. And here we are talking about people with different types of disabilities. But in their regions, they managed to highlight a huge layer of barriers and solutions and draft solutions for these barriers and challenges and present the solution to local authorities to make sure that their voice is heard and these solutions are integrated into relevant documents and policies. We have worked with 10 regions, 10 communities, and more than 3,000 30,000 people were involved. We managed to bring together 300 organizations of people with disabilities. We conducted events in regions, and also we worked in those regions that are constantly under shelling on a daily basis, in Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Odessa, in Kiev also. Here in Kiev, we were living through terrible airstrikes, and you are all aware about it. And we worked in these conditions. We held our events in these conditions. We also worked with regions where people with disabilities relocated as IDPs. These are Poltava regions, Mykolaiv region, Ivano-Frankivsk, Cherkasy region, Uman town, Korостень town in Zhytomyr region. And all this work was conducted in these very hard times. But now, in the course of our project, Trostianets community in Sumy region has changed its status because they are under high risk of military hostilities. But even now, we manage to bring people with disabilities together and make sure that their voice is heard, related to Article 11 of the Convention. Because people's life depends on it. How it is possible to organize evacuation safely and efficiently. Also, this year we mark our 40-year anniversary of explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And we will be commemorating people who helped to evacuate, help to protect at the expense of their own lives. For me, it is very important because I lost my eyesight in April 1986. And now in Korостeń community, there are 457 liquidators of this disaster. And we also involve them to make sure that their voice is heard. We don't forget anyone. Everyone has a right to protection. And now I would like to draw a conclusion of my presentation. Public authorities, humanitarian actors, we are your partners. Organizations of people with disabilities are prepared to be your partners because together we can make a difference and mitigate the risks and barriers that have been revealed in the course of our advocacy work. And today, we are ready to get involved into the work in small communities, on the local level and on the national level. But if we fail to involve people with disabilities, we lose resources. The state loses resources because they make wrong decisions. Don't do anything for us without us when you don't involve people with disabilities. I want to thank you very much once again, and I want to draw your attention to the publications about people, about their stories on the website of our organization. They tell how they live in the context of humanitarian crisis and in wartime. But people with disabilities are strong force. They help to save themselves, their children, and also members of their communities. They become an active group that help to resolve problems in their local communities. I do urge public authorities to listen to us and to work with us as partners on the local level and other level. We want to make access to humanitarian aid feasible for all. I want to thank all our partners and collaborators on the regional level. When I didn't have electricity, but you did, you wrote emails to me, and we never kept regular working hours because of the electricity cuts, but still we managed, and we had a really great outcome. Thank you. Thank you for these conclusions, Lesya. Now I give the floor to Olga Inogradova from Mykolaiv, she will be joining us online. and she represents the local center of inclusive social services. Good morning, dear colleagues. I'm Olga Vinogradova, and I want to start by saying that I have been a wheelchair user for 25 years. For many of the barriers we are talking about today, I have experienced in my own life, not just through my professional work. Today, I would like to focus on the importance of involving OPDs in decision making, not just on the national level, but also on the regional and community level, in the course of our work as we plan the recovery programs and draft plans on the local level. Again, I want to highlight the well-known principle nothing for us without us, that is enshrined by the UN CRPD. The gist is very simple. The decisions made for people with disabilities should involve people with disabilities, but unfortunately we see that in real life this principle is not always observed, it doesn't always work, and this leads to specific problems. First of all, often information is not accessible. Information about access to humanitarian aid or about alerts, alarm systems is not provided in accessible formats, or it is not disseminated through channels that are used by people with disabilities. And as a result, many people are not aware about specific types of aid or opportunities that are available, and people are left behind. The next challenge is lack of individualized approach. People with disabilities are very different. Someone may have psychosocial disorders, hearing disabilities, visual disabilities, and every situation requires individualized solution. Therefore, when we draft our programs without this awareness, they may look good on paper, but in real life they become inaccessible for people. The third challenge is insufficient participation of people with disabilities themselves and their organization in planning processes. It becomes particularly noticeable in wartime when plans are developed to ensure recovery and people with disabilities are not engaged in priority setting. But at the same time, people with disabilities are some of the most vulnerable groups in crisis situation. And when their voice is not taken into account, the aid can be not timely, not adequate, or not appropriate to people. The next challenge is barriers on the local level. Without accessible infrastructure, people with disabilities face barriers on a daily basis that impair their functioning. They are not able to enter a hospital, to go to the air raid shelter. They are not able to use public transport, and they even struggle to go outside to leave their homes. And that's why we advocated changes to the implementation of municipal programs to make sure that these programs are drafted on a non-discrimination basis and on the basis of universal design and using reasonable accommodation pursuant to Ukrainian legislation and the UN CRPD. Also, it is important to take into account the impact of such draft programs on people with disabilities in social area. Whenever programs are planned to ensure accessibility to public services or to develop new public social services, it is really important to involve OPDs because they have valuable experiences. They work with people every day and they are very knowledgeable about these barriers. Their participation helps to identify problems, draft more effective programs, and avoid mistakes in planning and use the community resources more effectively. Excuse me, you may be hearing explosions now. But again, I would like to focus your attention on the fact that the participation of OPDs is not just about consultation processes, it is partnership. When the public authorities and OPDs work together, everyone benefits. Communities benefit from more higher quality solutions. They have better programs, and people with disabilities gain access to rights, opportunities, and programs. And therefore, we provided our suggestions to Mykolaiv authorities to the regional programs and policies. Currently, we are conducting monitoring of the implementation of our suggestions. And after these suggestions are implemented, it will signify a very important step that we have made, because people with disabilities and their representative organization will become part of inclusive solutions and programs at all levels. Because inclusive solutions are not possible when people with disabilities are not involved. Only thanks to this, we will be able to build communities where every person with disabilities will be able to live on an equal basis with others without barriers and without segregation. Thank you, Olga. It is a pity that you can't be here with us today, but we do have a very strong team in Mykolaiv city and Mykolaiv region. And with God's blessing, I hope that all your suggestions to make changes to regional regulations to make sure that people with disabilities are listened to and directly involved to planning and monitoring processes are indeed implemented. And maybe other regions will also draw their inspiration from it and use it as a boost. Now I would like to turn over to Odessa, Alexa Kolov, the Commissioner for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Odessa region, and Oleg is also joining us online. Good morning, colleagues. I'm Alexa Kolov, and I'm the Commissioner for the Rights of People with Disabilities in Odessa Municipal Council. I have been using a wheelchair for a long time. It is a great honor for me to be part of this large and very strong team that brought together representatives of public authorities, OPDs, and general public, international community to make sure that air raid shelters are accessible for people with disabilities, specifically in Odessa region. The full-scale war revealed a very painful issue, because air raid shelters should be accessible for every individual. It should be not just a point on the map formally marked. It should be accessible for people with disabilities, for parents with children in prams, and people with different injuries. During our survey, we checked the actual accessibility of these shelters, and we saw a number of problems that are often talked about, but that still remain unresolved. Here on the screen, you can see the photos that we took during this audit. The first issue is a lack of physical accessibilities at the entry to these errands shelters, such as stairs, very steep slopes, railings, or other structural elements that make it impossible for the person with disabilities to get inside. The third problem, if even there are devices or temporary construction installed, they do not guarantee access, because these solutions are practically useless. The third problem is lack or inadequate navigation, because some of the shelters don't have easy-to-use navigation, how to get to the center, how to move inside it, and how to be safe for people with visual disabilities. The first problem is inadequate alert systems. We highlighted the lack of appropriate alerts for people with hearing with disabilities, because there may be a shelter available for people with some types of disabilities. It remains unavailable or unknown, and this increases their security risks. And some people with disabilities say that I know where the shelter is, but I will not get there in time because my mother will not be able to go down these stairs, because accessibility is about the safety and lives of people. Our task is to make sure that during air raid alarms, every individual, every person with disabilities can access air raid shelters. Thank you, Oleka. Now I would ask Victoria Pleshko, head of OPD from Odessa, to continue your input. Greetings, I hope you can hear me well. Yes, we can. First of all, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a member of this team and this highly important project. I would like to highlight that we started our work from the survey because we wanted to learn the opinions of persons with disabilities about the accessibility of the shelter system and the alert system, to identify what the needs are. Based on our findings from this survey and audit of the shelters, my colleague Oleg audited all the shelters, and the issues he uncovered also were reported by the participants of our survey. After the survey and audit, we held an event to present the results and to inform local government bodies about these challenges and about the actual state of air raid shelters. This event was attended by our international partners, persons with disabilities, community members, local authorities. We had a very active dialogue after the presentation. But we didn't just discuss the problems. We are all aware that problems exist everywhere in every city or town. And it is pointless to say how huge these problems are. What is needed is to present practical recommendations that can be implemented right now given available resources. And these resources will be different in different communities. And as a result of our work, we propose solutions. And I want to highlight that all participants supported this solution, which is reflected in the resolution. First of all, we spoke about so-called quick fixes to make sure that air shelters are accessible thanks to temporary accessibility devices. We also provided a percentage analysis, and these quick fix solutions help to increase accessibility by 10%. These, for example, include mobile ramps. The process of reconstruction pursuant to the state building regulation takes a long time, and we have been living in a war for 5 years and have been faced with daily risks. And this is our primary objective, to ensure accessibility of shelters. And if some problems can be resolved through quick fix solutions, it makes sense to use them. Secondly, during the audit of the RH shelters, and in our survey responded spoke about the lack of adequate navigation signs to see where they can find shelter. Thirdly, it is important to develop multi-channel alert system that would include not just auditory signals, but also text signals and other formats. We were thinking not just about people with hearing disabilities or visual disabilities. It is important that our recommendations are integrated in the expense budget for the city for 2026, because it will help to start developing the solutions this year. But this will require a lot of preparatory work, including development of different documents. And we wanted to find quick solutions. For example, to publish information on the city's website about the degree of accessibility of shelters, not just about their availability. The person can use the information about the shelters, the fact that they exist, but they don't have any information about how accessible this shelter is. And one of the things that we urged is to include people with disabilities in the development of decisions, to involve them into different committees. The head of Odessa City Council supported, endorsed our resolution and signed it. And we are now going to see how the public authorities are going to respond to our recommendations. Thank you once again. Thank you for this opportunity to participate.
You know that we have taken into account a lot from the proposals that we're going to present, but we do understand that the work in locally, directly in the communities is very important. So we wish a lot of success to you, but we also want to assure you that we are going to help your experts and with expertise. So let us continue, as we have already mentioned, and Pani Lesia has mentioned that we have involved people and organizations of disabilities with various types of disabilities. And I'm very pleased that Kyiv Organization of Ukrainian Society of the Deaf has become our partner as well, part of our team. And I would like to invite Tatiana Kranienko as the head of Kyiv Organization of Ukrainian Society of the Deaf. So, Pani Tatiana, please sound. No sound. As for announcing the air alarms, this is very life-saving information, but unfortunately for people without or with hearing impairments, it becomes often inaccessible. And so this is about how to support persons with disabilities with hearing aids during humanitarian crisis. There has been discussion on the 27th of February, discussion around table regarding the communicative accessibility, in particular the absence of sign language interpretation and difficulty to access emergency services. There is a person often has that smartphone next to the person, but if a person cannot see it there and the person cannot hear or cannot see, sometimes then in that case, smart watches have become our savers. When a person who cannot hear will pay attention to his her watch and understand that something needs to be done, and it helps many people. The participants of the round table have emphasized that during the war and emergencies, access to information is a matter of life and security. And that is why systemic solutions are necessary. In particular, interpretation with sign language is necessary and improve the interaction between the authorities and organizations and people with disabilities. Thank you very much. And as a follow-up to this video clip, I would like to express the importance of the information for people with hearing impairments under the conditions of humanitarian crisis. Any person who can hear, that person can use his or her smartphone in any case and obtain information through their mobile phone or smartphone, or read or hear or watch a video, etc. A deaf person, how can that person, how does a deaf person feel in a situation when, for example, that person looks somewhere and there is a lot of text and that seems like English, like a foreign language text, because that person is a sign language text, and that person can look at some information and some words that might be enough. For example, there was an explosion in Sumy city, something needs to be done, that's all. Or to watch a video on YouTube, but as for big text, extensive text, will not be understandable for deaf people, and the person who cannot hear will miss the text, will not pay attention to that. And because there is no sign language interpretation of that information, for example, TV channel Kiev 24, they do provide sign language interpretation. Yes, they do have indeed on that channel, but imagine you open the broadcasting of the TV channel over on your smartphone, but the symbol of the sign interpreter is very small, and it is very small and very difficult to follow. The official information, there is no official information regarding sign language. Sometimes there are some briefings from Kyiv State Administration which are supported with sign language interpreting, but a big part, a big number of deaf people do not have access to information just because of the absence of sign language interpretation of the official information on the humanitarian crisis. And as a result, if there is an explosion, shelling, a person cannot receive information, and the person, in fact, is left alone with that problem. What do we propose is to implement the news broadcasting from official state agencies in convenient ways so that they are accessible for persons with disabilities, so that sign language interpreter would be in size like 1/3 of the screen, and it would be really convenient. That information and a sign language interpreter who would be on a bigger part of the screen, would be accessible for deaf people, also to be accompanied with subtitles, and also that information could be disseminated through other channels, including Telegram communication, that would be accessible for deaf people. For example, if there is air alarm in Kiev and a drone hits a building and windows broke and fall out, that is humanitarian crisis. 1,700 sign language users are left without important information, essential information from state authorities. They received information, but much later, and we have implemented a survey among deaf people as part of the project, and 86% of the deaf people want to obtain information through sign language interpretation. And the problem is related, the problem with accessibility of information is present not only in Kyiv, but across Ukraine and remote areas, especially frontline areas. For example, Zaporizhia region, Kharkiv region, and frontline areas. So we ask you very much that we do not ask for privileges, but we demand the basic rights as the access to the information. We need to implement obligatory interpretation of in sign language for official resources in specifically accessible information, because the access to information is the right of person as the basis also for life. And thank you for your attention. At the end, I would like to show an example how sign language interpreting is provided over the BBC channel for their evening news. If possible, could you share it on the screen, please, that brief video clip? Dear colleagues, please pay attention. The size of the sign language interpreter in comparison with the overall size of the screen, and the sign interpreter is about 1/4 of the entire screen, and this is evening news specifically for sign language users in Great Britain. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Tatiana. We also have taken, at least partially, the proposals that you have presented, and your presentation proves again that without direct involvement of the persons with disabilities, it's impossible to promote the accessibility principle. Now, I would like to invite the head of the Poltava Region Organization of Ukrainian Society of the Blind. Dear Marina, everyone, I'm very pleased to welcome you. Today, I'm going to present the work which has become possible thanks to the National Assembly and the International Disability Alliance. This information will be read in Braille type because for me and for those who have visual impairments, this is a typical, usual way of processing text. Poltava region, since the start of the full-scale war, has become shelter for many internally displaced people, including people with disabilities and specifically people with visual impairments. Specifically regarding access to information on humanitarian responses for people with disabilities with visual impairments in our territorial community is extremely important. This directly reflects the international principles and standards and Article 11 of the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. Our survey within the advocacy campaign has proved that for 94% of the respondents, the informational barriers are becoming barriers for receiving humanitarian support. We have documented specific technical problems which factually make it impossible to receive humanitarian help. In particular, first problem is representation in the forms of pictures instead of text regarding the information on humanitarian response, which is impossible, which is inaccessible for 64% of respondents. It is impossible for them to read that information because they cannot see it's not possible to perceive for them because they cannot read that information because they cannot use the screen readers using which people can read information through their smartphones. Their screen readers simply can't read out that information. The second problem is the technical inaccessibility of the service questionnaires. For 92% of our respondents, it is a critical barrier. The buttons on the online buttons are not voiced out. That means that the program screen readers cannot inform a person what that button is about or for. And so a person who can see the information on the screen, but a blind person relies on a screen reader, and also persons with serious blind visual impairments are always using such programs. If a button on the screen has not correct identification, the person with visual impairments cannot understand what that button, what that function is about, and may not understand, cannot understand what to press. Also, it is impossible for a blind person to go through capture verification. For example, a person may encounter a task, support you're not a robot. And a person who can see may use like pictures with bicycles or traffic lights and match them, whatever, but a blind person cannot see those symbols. And if it is not possible to have alternative captcha verification through text, then you cannot go through this verification. Also, talking about verification through SMS or other textual messages. Also a problem with using small size font of the text, and when it is impossible to increase without violating the structure of the page. As a result, the text becomes hard to access for visually impaired people with visual impairments. Also, regarding the use of registration forms, and when people use assistive technologies, they need more time to work with registration forms. As a consequence, they have not enough time to finish registration or even to start. Another problem is informational defragmentation of the information. The data about humanitarian response is dispersed across many sites, in chats and social media. As a result, people with visual impairments receive such information late, and very often their service for obtaining such support are closed, and people with visual impairments have no chance to apply for such support. 100% of the respondents stated that they need a single unified resource with the information about the humanitarian assistance in communities. It is about creating an accessible, informative, according to the assistant of the acting secretary of our city council, Katerina Yamshikova, is now under work in the relevant department. So in that document, we have offered specific steps. First, adaptation of the websites of self-government bodies according to the standards of digital accessibility. Also, refusal from publication of important information in the format of images without text. Next, also to ensure accessibility of electronic registration forms and creation of the unified accessible section about humanitarian response on the website of Poltava City Council. Also, implementation of inclusive mechanism for feedback. At the same time, it's important to emphasize that the high quality and sustainable changes in the community will be possible if there is ongoing and stable cooperation between local self-governments and public organizations, NGOs, when people with disabilities will be able to provide necessary expert support and become testers of the new services and to become users and so as to make all the services accessible. And in that case, the principle of the involvement, inclusion into the decision making and participation of people with disabilities in the processes when it is about their life. Because our message is very simple. Access to information is access to survival. Dear Marina, I want to applaud to you. I want you to show how you read, because how you have been reading. I said at the beginning that I was going to use Braille type, font type. Thank you, because I thought that since you've taken Anastasia, my daughter Valentina, who to help you see. Thank you, dear colleagues. So we are talking here about the rights of the people, and those especially who cannot see. They need to be asked what to do, how to do it in order for them to enable receiving of information. Sometimes even when you open some website, some information, and even using glasses, you cannot see that, cannot perceive that. So what not to mention people who are blind. And again, referring back to the legislative principles when it is stated that the state needs to ensure their rights. Now the microphone goes to Natalia Ostroglad, head of the NGO Autism and Self-Conscious Parenting. So hello everyone, my name is Natalia. I am head of the public organization or Autism, Self-Conscious Parenting. I would like to present Zaporizhia region and present the results of our work and focus on ensuring efficient services in the communities, especially under conditions of war and humanitarian crisis and response. Also, I would like to quickly present a story of a boy, of a guy which illustrates a specific and real life story to him. But first, about the results of our activities. In February 2026, we carried out 3 focus groups with the parents and youth with disabilities, including internally displaced persons. In altogether, 25 parents participated in focus groups. They were distributed into groups. The first group to include parents of preschool children, children from 4 to 7 years old. Second group consisted of parents of school-age children with the age 8 to 18 years old. And third group included parents and youth, parents of the youth 18 plus. We discussed the barriers for education and access to transport and cash assistance. Our support is 70% of barriers are structural ones, such as bureaucracy, lack of specialists. Also, 30% are related to war-related aspects such as shelling, lack of electricity, and others. Now, I want to also emphasize we are talking about Zaporizhia territorial community. Now, across the categories for preschool children, the main main barrier was lack of access to information. When parents did not know where to take information, when systemic approach to information was missing, when how to come to a doctor, how to access a doctor, how to sign up for early intervention service. And mostly parents used what is called a grassroots radio, that is information spread across the peers. Also, category second group for school-age children. So the parents here stressed the problem with the absence of inclusive education, absence of sensory rooms or socialization efforts, which causes bullying and isolation. And the third category of the youth, parents of the youth 18 plus, they said they are suffering, that their children, their youth are suffering from the absence of the daycare service and employment support and professional self-realization, because programs are often not adapted and the payments for such parents are often very insufficient in order to obtain services of a certain kind of quality, but no service at all. Overall, 40% of barriers are related to information and bureaucracy barriers, and 30% are related to transportation and financial. This is not only about problems and statistics, because this is all related to burning out, to problems with development of children and marginalization, which contradicts the UN principles. Now, talking about our community in Zaporizhia region as a front border region, humanitarian services are not abstraction. These are foundation for services, because they support not only education or other kinds of service, but also the social service to avoid, prevent isolation. Of course, I understand we should not say that everything is bad. I would like to mention that the service of social taxi was launched in Zaporizhia region recently, and at first it was offered for people who suffered shelling and mine and explosive traumas. But now this service, thanks to parents, organization, people with disabilities, this service now extends to persons and parents with disabilities. Also, I announced before a story, case study about Maxim, who is now 20 years old and who has autism. If you want to see him, he is on the photo now on that in that yellow square behind Victoria Nazarenka. That boy is now with us in our room waiting for his mother. He is a resident of Zaporizhia community, and during the hostilities, he did not leave the region since 2022. Maxim has real talent. He can play the piano and paint, but because of the war and barriers, he has not had access to social services, which had been developing since 2020 to some extent. Now, may I remind you that Maxim is 20 years old, and in his childhood there were queues for rehabilitation and absence of specialists, so he has autism, and but unfortunately, still some bureaucratic barriers still remain related to documents preparation. At school, in the school, he encountered the lack of inclusive programs and bullying consequently. As a result, in his 20 years old, he has no access to daycare services, to employment, and certain barriers in his access to transport and trips, because the services which are available in the community needs to be reached first through transportation, and takes quite some distance. And the mother who is next to me here, she says that her child has to stay within the four walls, isolated and not included anywhere, and the family is losing not only the child, but is isolating. And this is unfortunately a typical story because the necessary services such children as Maxim losing their independence, and notwithstanding the fact that some services are gradually developing in our region and some daycare services are starting, but they cannot cover that number of people and number of and that amount of need which is in the Zaporizhia region. Here I would like gradually shift to the fact that our public organizations are, so to say, amplifiers in the provision of social services and as assistive resource for the community. And for example, our community provides such services at the support with the as support groups, advocacy, and we serve as a bridge between parents and the government and the authorities. We also monitor changes. For example, we recommend to create a council of parents that would provide feedback on a quarterly basis. Our public organizations are able to supplement state services, especially in the wartime conditions when flexibility is critically impossible. To conclude, our recommendations, which have summarized all the carried out focus groups, that is, our recommendations are the following. First, to create the single platform of information. Second, to simplify bureaucracy. We're thinking about that. Next, to launch specialized transportation. Next, to monetize services, to increase, expand early intervention services and support groups. Also, we have provided certain recommendations to the relevant departments and stakeholders. Together, we are trying to ensure that our families have better quality of life. Thank you, Natalia. You're doing great job. I would like also to mention that we had yesterday presentation from the servicing service for people with disabilities yesterday, and the information that you have accumulated could also be passed to them, and organizations working in the field of rights or protecting the rights of children with disabilities. We are ready to share your material because a lot of important relevant materials have been developed, and these are like proposals for further programs, including possibly an international organization, including in Ukraine and internationally. And also, I would like to invite for final word to Natalia Lisafina. Thank you for getting us, who is head of public organization Troy in Trostianets City, Sumy region.
Мої вітання, шановні партнери. Мене звати Наталя Лісафіна, і я представляю громадську
Greetings, dear partners.
організацію.
I'm Natalia Lisafina, and I represent OPD Troy in Tresteniec community, Sumy region. Today, I would like to share our experience, the experience of the community that survived occupation and kept its ability to support one another. Our small town Tresteniec was in the occupation in 2023. The aggressor machinery was placed near residential buildings, and in our vegetable garden we had a Russian tank. It was quite unsafe to go outside. We didn't have water supply, didn't have any communication. At the same time, I had my daughter with me who uses a wheelchair. He was born in 1991 on the 24th of August, the day when Ukraine's independence was announced, and I always considered it symbolic. She was a regular child, but later she had seizures. We went through hospitals, and she was granted disability status. Over the past 30 years, my life revolves around my daughter, caring for her daughter, providing rehabilitation for her, and providing opportunities that are considered a commonplace thing for other children. As a result of shelling, the house of our friends was damaged, and there are also people with disabilities. We invited them to stay with us. We were living together and try to survive together these terrible times. We were scared together. On the 15th of March 2023, Russian soldiers told us to leave our house. Just imagine this. My daughter in the wheelchair, just with a blanket, without warm clothes, without other belongings. We just took our pets. We were just walking along the street and hoping that someone would give shelter to us. I apologize for the emotions, and we did receive help. Thanks to the humanity and the support, we managed to survive. And I am deeply grateful to the families that gave us a roof over our head. After that, people came for food, water, because many lost even the most necessary things. During the advocacy campaign, we surveyed people with disabilities in our community, which showed that 92% regularly receive humanitarian aid. 72% receive this humanitarian aid thanks to the resources mobilized by our organizations. This included food supply, hygiene items. Also important resource is funding to repair housing and ensure electricity supply. Therefore, we suggested a number of important solutions. First of all, prioritize people with disabilities as a vulnerable group. Second, to ensure targeted nature of the delivery of targeted humanitarian aid. Thirdly, to initiate mobile electricity supply program. My life revolves for many years around caring for my daughter, and this helps me to understand how important it is not to leave people with disabilities alone with their problems. Lived through occupation, temporary loss of my housing, and scare for my daughter. And I know that our main objective is to act together, stay united, and to make sure that everyone has a right to protection, to life, even in the most challenging times. Thank you for your attention. I don't think that it calls for any comment. Everything is clear. We are holding on. Well, colleagues, in principle, we have completed our section, what we want to represent to you today. We are not able to listen to all OPDs. Now, I invite you to proceed to the recommendations that we prepared for humanitarian response area. And now I give the floor to Alla Sotska, Doctor of Law. Over to you, Alla. Good morning, dear colleagues. Could you please put my PowerPoint on, please? Today we heard the things that gives you goosebumps and you just can't help wondering why people with disabilities are not heard in Ukraine. And we hope that eventually the provisions of UNCRPD will be implemented and the provisions of Ukrainian law will be implemented. Today, we have heard the rationale about all the suggestions of NIPD to the humanitarian response plans and programs to mainstream the needs of people with disabilities. I hope that the international documents and plans, policies, and the national legislation will integrate these suggestions.
Що ж було зроблено? Передусім, що
So what we
стосується
have
сфери
done,
цивільного
first of
захисту
all,
і
regarding civil
підтримки людей з
protection
інвалідністю
and
в
support for
умовах
people with
гуманітарного реагування.
disabilities in
Передусім, зараз будемо говорити з вами
humanitarian
про
response. First of
законопроект,
all, we will be
розроблений
talking with
асамблеєю,
you
який
about the
стосується
draft law
змін до Кодексу
developed by
цивільного захисту
NIPD
України.
to
Ці зміни
initiating
розроблені з метою
changes to the
посилення
Civil
врахування
Protection
прав та
Code of
особливих потреб
Ukraine.
осіб з
These
інвалідністю
changes
у
are
державній
designed
політиці
to
цивільного
strengthen
захисту.
the
Як уже
protection of
звучало,
rights
це
for
ключовий
people with
документ,
disabilities
свого роду
in
Біблія,
a
яка
civil
забезпечує
protection
захист
sector.
населення в
This
умовах
is the key
надзвичайних
document,
ситуацій.
a Bible,
І
the
цей
Bible, so
документ,
to
він
say,
апріорі
that
повинен враховувати
ensures
права і потреби людей з інвалідністю.
access to
Другий
protection
документ – це пропозиції до
services
проекту національного
in
плану з
emergencies,
реалізації
and by
Конвенції про права
definition,
осіб з інвалідністю
this
на
document
період до
should
2030 року у контексті статті
also
11. Тобто
cover the
сьогодні ми
rights of
будемо
people with
говорити не цілком про
disabilities.
позицію
Also,
Національної асамблеї
today we'll be
стосовно цього
talking not
документу,
just
а
about
суто, що
NIPD
стосується гуманітарного
suggestions
реагування.
regarding
Третій
the
документ, про
documents
який
to
говоритиму
the
я, це
national plan
пропозиції
to
стосовно
implement the UN
викладення розділу
CRPD.
19
We will be
забезпечення
talking
прав осіб з
about our
інвалідністю
suggestions
у
to ensure
проекті Національної
civil
стратегії
protection
у
for
сфері
people
прав
with
людини на
disabilities.
період до
And the third document
2035
we will be
року.
talking today is our suggestions to section
Передусім,
19.
що стосується пропозицій до
First of
Кодексу
all,
цивільного
regarding the
захисту.
suggestion to the Civil Protection Code.
В цьому документі на сьогодні
In this
передбачено
document
низку гарантій
today,
для людей з інвалідністю. Відповідні
there are
гарантії,
a
вони
number of guarantees
стосуються
for people with
доступності
disabilities.
оповіщення
These
та
guarantees
інформування,
relate
і передусім
to
для людей, які
accessible
мають порушення зору
information
та слуху. Свого
and
часу, коли у
navigation
2014
for
році
people
розроблявся
with hearing
кодекс,
and visual disabilities.
було
When
чітке
this code
уявлення про
was being
те,
drafted in
якої доступності
2014,
потребують ці категорії
there was a
населення.
clear idea of
Але
what type of
сучасна війна
accessibility is required for
показала,
these
що
population
доступності в
groups.
оповіщенні, в
But
інформуванні з
current
усіх
war
заходах,
has
пов'язаних із
demonstrated
цивільним
that
захистом, потребують
accessibility
всі без винятку люди з
of
інвалідністю з
all
усіма
civil
без винятку
protection
видами
measures
порушень.
is required
У
for
зв'язку з
all
цим
people with disabilities,
асамблея
with
на
all
основі
types of disabilities
рекомендацій
without any
і
exception.
своїх членів громадських організацій з урахуванням власного досвіду
Therefore,
підготувала пропозиції
NAPD
стосовно
drew
удосконалення
on
норм
its own
кодексу. Ці
expertise and
пропозиції стосуються
findings from our
передусім
member
закріплення
OPDs
принципу
to develop
доступності заходів
these
цивільного
suggestions.
захисту для всіх
And first of
категорій
all,
населення
these
без винятку.
suggestions
Ми з вами, як ніхто інший, розуміємо, що здавалося
put
принцип
forward
це
the
річ
need to ensure
досить таки
accessibility to protection
не
for people with
конкретна, але
disabilities.
саме
It
принципи
is not a
забезпечують
very
врахування
concrete, not very
прав і
specific
потреб людей
things,
з інвалідністю,
but
якщо вони є
these
закріплені в
principles
спеціальному законодавстві.
ensure the rights of
Наступними
people with
пропозиціями є
disabilities and
покладення на
their needs
єдину
if
державну
they
систему
are
цивільного
enshrined in
захисту
national law.
завдань, які
The next
стосуються
is to
забезпечення і врахування прав і особливих потреб
make
вразливих категорій
local
населення, включно з людьми з інвалідністю.
authorities responsible for
Забезпечення
meeting
доступності
the needs
усіх
of
об'єктів
local
фонду захисних
populations,
споруд цивільного захисту, а
particularly
також,
the
що
needs
дуже
of people
важливо,
with
об'єктів
disabilities.
критичної
Next,
інфраструктури в сфері
ensure
життєзабезпечення населення.
the
Доступними
accessibility
мають бути
of
не
all
тільки
civil
укриття,
protection
доступними
measures,
мають бути об'єкти
critical
розміщення
infrastructure.
постраждалого населення після того, як
So
люди
it's
вже
not about the
скористалися
accessibility of
своїм правом і на
air raid
укриття, на
shelters, just
доступність до
accessibility
укриття
of air raid
і
shelters.
іншими
But
правами в
after
сфері
people
цивільного захисту.
have exercised their
Також
right to accessible air
пропонуємо
raid shelters,
покласти на
they should
єдину
also be
державну
able
систему
to
цивільного
access
захисту завдання
other
із
civil protection
забезпечення в
options.
умовах особливого
Also,
періоду мережі закладів охорони здоров'я
our proposal
допоміжними
is
засобами
to
реабілітації. Сьогодні в кодексі йдеться про
make
ліки.
the
Сьогодні в кодексі
civil
йдеться про
protection
різноманітні медичні
agencies
послуги, але всі ми з
responsible
вами
to
знаємо,
provide
що в умовах, коли
temporary assistive
доводиться
devices.
тікати від
Today,
страшних
we are
загроз
talking
війни,
about
люди досить
access to
часто
medicines,
залишаються без
access to
своїх
essential services.
рук і
But
без своїх
today, we
ніг,
all
без
know
допоміжних
that
засобів
when
реабілітації,
people
які є для
are
них життєво
forced to flee
необхідними.
from
І
war,
сьогодні, коли є така
they remain
можливість,
without
потрібно
their
нею
legs,
скористатися,
without
потрібно,
their
щоб люди
arms,
мали
and
доступ до
therefore
допоміжних засобів
they need
реабілітації,
to
якщо
have
вони не мали
access
змоги
to
забрати
assistive
їх з собою в
rehabilitation
умовах
devices if
надзвичайної
they were not
ситуації і
able
порятунку
to
свого життя.
take them
Також ми пропонуємо визначити низку владних повноважень у
at the
сфері
moment of
цивільного захисту.
evacuation.
Ми
Also,
пропонуємо
we
покласти
propose
на уряд
to
завдання
specify
стосовно забезпечення
the list
заховання
of
рішення
powers
з
in
питань
the area
цивільного
of
захисту,
civil protection.
включно з планами заходів,
We
враховувати
propose
права
that
і
the
особливі потреби
government
вразливих категорій
should be
населення.
vested
Сьогодні, на
with the
жаль, цього в
responsibility
кодексі
to
не
develop
передбачено.
plans
Також ми хочемо, щоб уряд встановив вимоги і
to
порядок
ensure
здійснення
the
заходів і
needs of people with
життєзабезпечення
disabilities
постраждалих
in
з
the civil
врахуванням
protection
потреб людей з інвалідністю.
sector.
Тому що кодекс покладає
Also, the
відповідне
government
повноваження на
should
уряд,
be made
але на превеликий
responsible
жаль, на сьогодні такого документу немає. І ми сподіваємося, що ми будемо почуті, і уряд
to
прийме
ensure the
таке
accessibility
відповідне рішення,
of
і ми знатимемо, на що
civil
можуть
protection
розраховувати люди з
facilities
інвалідністю,
that are
які покинули
subordinate
домівки
to
або які
different
залишаються в своїх
agencies.
домівках, проте мають відповідні
Because people
потреби,
with
зумовлені
disabilities
війною.
should
Також ми
be
хочемо, щоб
able to access the
центральні та місцеві
necessary
органи
resources
виконавчої влади,
after
органи
they
місцевого
have been
самоврядування
made to leave
здійснювали
their homes.
контроль за
Also,
відповідністю
we
об'єктів
want
фонду
local
захисних
government
споруд
bodies
цивільного
and
захисту
municipalities
вимогам
to
доступності для
monitor
людей з інвалідністю.
civil protection
Ми сьогодні неодноразово
facilities
чули про те,
and
що
their compliance to
важливо
the
доступність
requirements
укриттів, але потрібно
of
ще здійснювати
accessibility.
контроль для того, щоб
Today,
розуміти
we
реальну
heard
ситуацію,
about the need
зрозуміти, що
to
конкретно
make the
потрібно зробити
shelters
для забезпечення
accessible,
такої
but
доступності.
here
Також
supervision is
Національна
also
асамблея
important,
пропонує
and it
встановити
is
вимоги
important to
стосовно
understand
забезпечення
what is
оповіщення
required
та
to make them
інформування,
accessible.
доведення до
Also,
населення
NIPD
інформації про об'єкти
proposes
фонду
to
захисних
ensure
споруд, про
accessibility
організацію
of
навчання
information
діям у
and alarm
надзвичайних
signaling,
ситуаціях, обов'язково у форматах,
and
що
informing
забезпечують
people
доступність сприйняття відповідної інформації
about the
людьми з інвалідністю.
available
Можливо, для когось буде
shelters
новиною, як
and
свого часу для
protection
мене, але
facilities,
люди
the
з фізичними
accessibility of
порушеннями,
these
які
facilities
не можуть піднятися, які є лежачими, вони
to
також
different
потребують
types of
інформаційної
people group.
доступності. Тому
It
що
may be a
потрібно,
new,
щоб
something new for
інформація, яка розміщена на моніторі комп'ютера,
some
перегорталася не тільки горизонтально, а також вертикально. Тобто інформаційна
officials
доступність це
that
стосовно
people with
всіх людей, не тільки тих, хто
certain
має
types of
порушення зору,
disabilities, for
передусім зору і
example,
слуху, а також для
bedridden
інших
people,
категорій населення.
also
Ми
require
пропонуємо
access
встановити
to
вимоги
information
про облаштування
and
місць для тимчасового перебування
access to
переміщених
shelter.
осіб з дотриманням
Therefore,
нормативних
it is
вимог стосовно
important to
забезпечення
ensure
доступності.
the
І це дуже важливо, тому що людина,
accessibility of
життя
information
чиє
that is
було
provided
врятоване в
through
умовах
electronic
надзвичайної
devices
ситуації,
for people.
потребує доступу до туалетної кімнати,
After
потребує доступу
people
до
were
ванної
rescued in
кімнати, до місця, де
emergencies,
вона
they need
ночуватиме,
access to
харчуватиметься і таке
hygiene
інше. Це є дуже важливо.
facilities, to bathroom, to
Стосовно
toilet,
включення до системи
to temporary
життєзабезпечення
living
постраждалих і
accommodations.
забезпечення допоміжними засобами реабілітації.
Also,
Сьогодні йдеться про
survivors
воду,
should
йдеться
be
про їжу,
provided
йдеться про все інше. Але
with
потрібно також
assistive
пам'ятати,
rehabilitation
що у значної
devices. We are talking
чисельності людей з
today about
інвалідністю є
access to
потреба в
water, access
забезпеченні
to food,
допоміжними
but
засобами
it should be borne
реабілітації.
in mind that a
Ми
large
пропонуємо
number of people
передбачити
require access to
підготовку і перепідготовку медичних
assistive
працівників
rehabilitation
особливостям
devices.
поводження
It
з
is
різними
also
категоріями
important
населення,
to
включно з людьми з
provide
інвалідністю.
training and
На сьогодні
retraining
медичних
for
працівників не
healthcare
вчать
workers
тому, як
on
поводитися з людьми з
working with
інвалідністю,
people with
хоча вони перші
disabilities
приходять на
because
допомогу
today
в найкритичніших
healthcare workers
ситуаціях.
are not trained how
Також ми
to
пропонуємо встановити вимоги про організацію та
communicate with
здійснення
people with
заходів
disabilities,
психологічного
although they
захисту
are some
населення
of
з
frontline
урахуванням особливих
responders.
потреб різних категорій населення, включно з людьми з
Also,
інвалідністю,
we
і
propose
включно з
to
тими людьми, які мають
provide
інтелектуальні та
mental health
психічні порушення.
support for people with different
Також
types of
пропонуємо передбачити
disabilities,
навчання
including
населення
people with
особливостям
psychosocial
поводження з різними
disorders.
категоріями населення,
We
зокрема з
also
людьми з
propose
інвалідністю.
to
Тому що не тільки
initiate
суб'єкти
training for
забезпеченого
different
цивільного
population
захисту повинні
groups
знати, як надати
on
підтримку людині з інвалідністю.
communicating
А
and
кожна
providing
людина,
help
кожен
to
член
people with
суспільства повинен
disabilities. It's not
мати
just the
відповідні навики,
responsibility
бути
of
навченим цьому, тому що ситуація
emergency
критична може статися
responders
і не тільки в
or
умовах надзвичайної ситуації, а
a
люди дуже
staff of
часто
the
бояться
respective
підійти і допомогти
agencies.
тому, кому зараз погано.
General public should have these
І
skills
останні
because
пропозиції до
often
Кодексу цивільного захисту
regular
пов'язані
people
з
are
встановленням
scared to
вимог про
approach a
оформлення
person who
результатів
suddenly
проведення
feels unwell
різних
in the street.
комплексних, контрольних, позапланових обстежень стану
We also
готовності
propose
об'єктів
to
фонду захисних
initiate
споруд цивільного захисту до
supervisory and
використання за
control measures
призначенням
to
у
monitor
формі
the
актів і
accessibility
звітів,
and the
і з тим,
suitability
щоб
of
відповідні акти і звіти
civil
містили
protection
обов'язково
infrastructure
інформацію
and to provide reports that would include information on the accessibility of these facilities. We also propose to involve organizations of people with disabilities to such audits and to involve civil society to the development and implementation of national policy in the civil protection field. We have many more proposals in our document, but these are the key ones that we wanted to focus today. We have provided the suggestions to the government based on these challenges, and we are prepared to participate in the development of the relevant draft law in the future. The next sets of our proposals relate to the draft National Action Plan to implement the UNCRPD till 2030 in the context of Article 11. These suggestions were drafted based on the concluding observations of the UNCRPD Committee on the report of Ukraine that were provided to Ukraine in October 2024. Today, the government has started to develop its resolution, and the National Assembly is actively involved in the preparation of this document. Regarding Article 11 on humanitarian response, we developed a list of suggestions that are related to the following: increasing the awareness and training to consider disability issues in emergencies, how to train people to survive successfully, how to protect themselves, how to train the emergency services about the needs of people with disabilities, about the methods for communicating with them. We propose developing information and awareness-raising materials for staff of emergency services, because particularly in wartime, we see significant staff turnover, and this training activity should be ongoing. Also, we have a number of suggestions based on the concluding observations of the UNCRPD Committee on granting the disability status. We have data on violence against people with disabilities and forcing them into marriage for obvious reasons. We also propose a list of measures to protect people with disabilities and other disorders, and to record this data in a specific register for protection of population. We also propose to develop a guide for local government bodies, for local enterprises and institutions that operate various shelters, for public authorities that are responsible to implement the policy related to civil protection. This guide would contain information about accessible shelters and other civil protection facilities. We also have a number of suggestions of ensuring life opportunities for people with disabilities, adults or children, and their access to essential services. Our suggestions to a large extent relate also to evacuation. We have legislation today, but unfortunately it is not effective in practice, and we want to monitor the effectiveness of these legal provisions to see what improvements are required in the legal field and in the area of enforcement of the relevant provisions. Our suggestions correspond to the Civil Protection Code of Ukraine. And finally, I would like to speak briefly about our suggestions additions to Section 19 of the document ensuring the rights of persons with disabilities.
Сподіваємося на те, що розділ, викладений Національною асамблеєю,
in the national strategy on human rights till 2035. We hope that our suggestions will be reflected in the final text. We try to formulate the purpose of this document that is 100% aligned with the UN CRPD to ensure basic human rights and freedoms and facilitating their full and effective participation in all areas of society on an equal basis of others. We focused on the following problems related to poverty, barriers, and access to various services. We formulated 25 objectives to this strategy that will be further elaborated as activities to implement the plans of the strategy and the objectives. We hope that the opinion of NAPD, our member OPDs, and our suggestions will be considered because they were developed on a high professional level and they also are based on real rights and needs of people with disabilities. Thank you, Allah. We are very short of time and we have one more suggestions on strengthening the role and support for OPDs. I would like to show you this booklet first of all. This is the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Persons with Disabilities. Ukraine ratified it in 2006, and we always say that this is the Bible that stipulates how the policy should be developed regarding our sector. And today there are still things that we need to highlight. We have Article 4 of CRPD 29 and 33 that clearly state that the states should consult and actively involve OPDs, people with disabilities through their organizations in the development of laws and national policies. Article 29 stipulates that the states are to encourage their participation in public affairs, specifically through organizations that are created to represent persons with disabilities. Later, the UN CRPD committee issued very important observations that comments that are our handbook today. First of all, general comment number 7, that specifies what OPD is. And it clearly says that organizations of people with disabilities should be led by people with disabilities and the majority of the members should be people with disabilities. This is a very clear formulation. Again, I want to draw your attention to the underlying principle of the convention, nothing for us without us, and we try to show how it is put in practice on the local level. But our organizations, I want to say, are surviving and continue to work thanks to, first of all, international support. The state talks about strengthening the capacities of such organization, including through independent and stable funding. And we think that the time has come, and we suggest to introduce the following changes to the budget code of Ukraine to institutionalize a mechanism for state support for organizations of people with disabilities. Today, many lawmakers and many parliamentary committees initiate various social programs and laws. And we propose a mechanism to support national organization from the national budget, regional organizations from regional budget, and local organizations through local budget. And this is international institutional support, not just support through individual programs. And this support will enable organization to work on a systemic basis, on a professional basis, and represent the rights of people with disabilities and their interests. Also, here we have people who lobbied for the main law for us today on fundamentals of social protection of persons with disabilities in Ukraine. And we suggest the following definition. Organizations of people with disabilities is a public association where the majority of founders and members participants are persons with disabilities and or their legal representatives, and which is headed by a person with disability or their legal representative. We believe that it is important to stipulate mandatory involvement of OPDs to the development of public decisions that affect the rights and interests of people with disabilities. And this should be enforced on all levels, national, regional, local. And the examples from Odessa and Mykolaiv demonstrate that this needs to be done. Here we talk about including people with disabilities and their representative organizations to working groups and committees to make sure their voice is heard. OPD should be involved in the development of laws and regulations that relate to the rights and interests of people with disabilities. And these OPDs should be nationwide. Today, it is not clear what this status means nationwide, because today we are faced with a situation when organizations that consist of 2 or 3 people counts on the same basis as a large organization with many people with disabilities that are members. And today, our colleague Lesa highlighted that we are not just a part of civil society. We want and are willing to be partners in the development of national policy. We also suggest a number of changes to the number of laws of Ukraine that affect the rights of people with disabilities. We are told that we have preferences, and to this I respond. It's not preferences, it's not benefits, it's equalization measures, because if our OPDs were given preferential terms to rent premises, if these premises are now proposed for a tender, our organization, member organization, will not be able to bid, to provide an effective bid for this tender and to maintain the facilities that is provided to them by municipal authorities. They should be given this right to keep this rent without auction, without competition. I believe that public authorities at all levels are interested in having partners who can work effectively and who can directly represent people with disabilities. And therefore, we think that pursuant to the comments of the UN CRPD committee, it is very important. It is not just our opinion, it is an issue of democratic development and the issue of ensuring the participation of people with disabilities in the life of our country. It is only the beginning, and we expect that we will have an opportunity to meet directly with people who are responsible in the public agencies for the development of laws and policies that we have discussed. I know that representatives of the government, of the secretariat are online today, and it is very important. We also wrote a number of letters, 5 letters on highly relevant issues. We are not going to name them today, but the situations that these letters pertain to are critical. And now I would like to call upon representatives of charity organizations and humanitarian organizations. Clearly, NIPD now focuses more on humanitarian work, and our projects are mostly centered around humanitarian work. But you know how to do advocacy professionally. You know how to find partners to make sure that indeed our voice is heard. I call upon you to join our efforts via often. You know that our office is located centrally, and we have this offer to you to join our efforts. Colleagues, thank you.
Завершили, да? Я зараз хочу надати слово Валентині, да? Валентині Щербіні. Вона є головою організації, яка також є членом
I would
Національної
like now to invite Valentina Sherbina, who is head of the organization, who is also a member of the National Assembly. So 3 minutes for you, because we still have some agenda.
Валя, включайте, да, мікрофон.
Please turn on your microphone.
Колеги, да, дайте дозвіл. Дякую, перепрошую. Валя, включіть звук.
Microphone,
да,
please.
ми вас не чуємо. Свій мікрофон.
Please turn on your
Валя,
microphone.
3 хвилини, будь ласка. Да.
Please, 3 minutes. I would like to say that our organization has been working as before. Actually, we receive humanitarian assistance. We send it to the regions. But our stoma relying sick people, they require protection from the indifference of the state, because when they apply for assistance, they receive response. There are no funds, and what can they do? So what to do for them, I don't know. Maybe stoma still people and people with disabilities who rely on stomas need to be added to this protection related proposal, because it's impossible for them to live. So there is a state program, it seems, but it is not implemented locally, and it is not implemented in the regions and district centers. Nothing is implemented. People receive no help, no support.
Це також правда. Дякую, Валя. Колеги, може хтось з наших
Dear colleagues, maybe someone from our authorities, agencies, you have heard that we are going to come to you additionally,
Ви ж розумієте, да, що
because you
є таке, тому
understand,
що дійсно адвокація це
because
дуже довгий процес, і
what we
повірте,
have is
що
what we
ми
have, because
дуже фахова
advocacy
команда, ми тут
is
всі юристи державного
long-standing,
управління, да,
long-term
маємо
process, and we
декілька
are really
докторів наук, тому це
expert
також дуже
group.
важливо, да,
We have
і головне, що ми маємо, знаєте, ту
experts in our fields. We are also masters of public administration. We have people with research
у нас є
status, and
досвід
we have
європейський, у нас є
experience.
досвід
We have experience
міжнародний,
Ukrainian.
тому
We
що
have
маємо
experience
такі серйозні
Ukrainian,
партнери, як
European,
Європейський
international. We
форум
do have
мудрості, як
very
міжнародний, да,
reliable
CBM,
partners,
тому
including
ну, ми
International
раді, що дуже
Disability
до нас
Alliance,
схожі.
European
Бачимо
Disability
ще
Forum, and
Новосєцького, 2 хвилинки, і
also
будемо завершувати.
I can see that Mikhailo Novoselsky would
Так.
like to say something. Also, 2 minutes for
Колеги,
you.
Світлана, я перепрошую, да,
And
ми дивилися тебе
Svetlana,
відеоролик.
please,
Дякую вам.
Svetlana,
Включайте
thank you
мікрофон,
very
да,
much, and turn on
обов'язково,
your
Світ.
microphone, of course.
Доброго дня, я вітаю всіх присутніх.
Good afternoon. My greetings go to everyone,
Людей з
to
інвалідністю.
the National Assembly of People with Disabilities, and to Victoria Nazarенko for a possibility to be here. I am the mother of a child with special needs who was on that video,
Без світла,
life without electricity. So a child, a palliative child who uses, relies on artificial ventilation of lungs, which saves the life for such children today, because the children is in has very severe condition, but we do have a hope for better, and we do work together in order for these children to be heard. And it seems that thanks to Artem in our community, we have certain positive changes with to provide with transportation, with communication means, and also, for example, he can use eye trackers, one of the rare cases in Ukraine, to help communicate. What I want to conclude is that all those achievements, if any there are, this is a big achievement of the society, which is impossible to show how our children need to be perceived, and this is a great victory for us. And today I have big request for the organization for because now we have had a situation with obtaining portable stations, and I cannot keep silent because of that, because many parents were surprised that the algorithm of actions in this regard was not very correct, because according to statistics, there are 24,000 of children with A disability A, group 1 disability A, and when they announced that the charging portable stations were only for 10,000 people, and then they said, well, after 10,000 were issued, that's enough. And now it has developed into a tragic situation, because many parents will be satisfied, of course, and we would like to respond at the national level to support such children, and to have some assurance that additional set of portable station could be purchased, and it has been said to us, but this is a very tentative response, and that humiliation that our parents have gone through searching for such portable stations is very improper, and we need just a proper response whether such portable stations would be allocated or not, or you should treat it as it is. So the main problem was with the communication. So thank you for your support, your interest in the lives of children with and people with disabilities. It's not only about support, but for me, it's also important to be involved, because I have the training experience. I know and I can how to express our opinion, and and it's very important for us to express support and to be taken into consideration. So thank you, Svetlana, for mentioning that when you very clearly stated 24,000 affordable stations are needed, but only 10,000 stations were promised. And we always keep saying to the state, don't, please stop, please hold, don't announce what you cannot provide with. Because now only 10,000 applications were accepted, but parents of children with disabilities also have a category. We have also children with disabilities, age 18 plus. Thank you, Svetlana. We're going to have a public council meeting at the Ministry of Social Policy at 3 o'clock. And to have a dialogue with them. Thank you, dear colleagues. Unfortunately, we promised to finish at 1 o'clock, but the fact is we need to keep to the time limit. I would like to thank at the end of this event, I would like to thank everyone who has come to us, because I know that even when we were talking about evacuation in the train, and some of them had to leave the trains for some time during their trip here because of the dangers, and thank you for finding possibility to come here. Thank you all the colleagues from public organizations, from clusters, from charitable organizations who have joined us. Please believe us. We know that you are doing very important job. You are supporting us immensely, and we just want us to be real partners and keep to be being real partners, and together we can achieve more. Special gratitude to the representatives from central authorities. And you understand why, because we do not take decisions. It's you who take decisions. And we know, you know, how difficult to take decisions. But we also know how resolutions are taken within experimental and pilot projects, for example, which seem to be easier to take. But please hear us. What priorities are important today, whether centers of invincibility are important or centers of social support are necessary. Please consult with people, because it's very important, because it's often a matter of life and death. And sometimes like a phone call to us, please take me out of the 8th floor, I am ready to give out my floor, my apartment. Sorry for some monologue today, more like monologue today, but I'm very thankful to our international partners, International Disability Alliance, European Disability Forum, and other CBM and other organizations. We're very for the support of Ukraine. We're thankful to our regional organizations for carrying out advocacy activities in the communities, for sharing your experience. And I want to tell you that we do not stop here. We continue, we keep working, because we do want to have results, so that those regulatory acts are approved. I want to confirm that we'll keep advocating, and we'll be thankful that we were thankful if our colleagues who have lawyers, professional lawyers in their teams, would look through our proposals. We are ready to listen, we are ready to make amendments, and we do believe that we will provide for ministries and different agencies mostly ready document. And that principle, nothing for us without us, must become the principle of the humanitarian policy. And in the process of Ukraine's recovery, I'm very thankful to our technical team. Thanks gratitude goes to our interpreters of sign language and other languages. I'm thankful to our Secretariat of National Assembly, wishing you a good day and safe trip back home. Thank you, dear colleagues.